Hello and welcome. You're watching Medically Speaking, and I am Vaishali Sharma. Today, we'll be talking about mental health in the context of World Mental Health Day, that is on October 10th. And with me, I have Dr. Jyoti Kapoor, senior psychiatrist from Paris Hospitals. Welcome, ma'am. The COVID-19 has had a profound impact on the mental health of everyone, including children and elderly. Help us understand what are the common yet significant impact of the pandemic and what are the coping mechanisms that everyone should consider.
Right, which I see pandemic and problems like that in our society or in our environment, when they come, they create a lot of anxiety because there is a threat. And the threat is that, something can harm us, something can hurt us, something can make us sick. And with the COVID pandemic on, there was a sudden wave of terror regarding a certain virus which the human beings have never seen. So it led to a very high degree of anxiety. And looking at the world scenario, the global scenario, our country also took measures. But while we had to take those measures, including the lockdown and keeping ourselves safe, there was a vast uh, shift in the way we lead our lives. So we were no more able to get out. We were no more able to interact with people. We were supposed to wear masks and sanitize so often that we had never done in past. So because of all of that, obviously the stress levels in our nervous system increased and gradually it led to mental health issues. So from anxiety and stress to primary psychiatric illnesses like obsessive compulsive disorders, anxiety disorders, panic disorders, depressive disorders, they all got triggered during this period. So we are seeing more and more patients with psychiatric issues now post COVID-19. In fact, COVID-19 related anxiety has impacted almost everybody across the world, and we now are identifying it as particularly as COVID anxiety disorder, and we are trying to kind of check or assess the symptoms over scales which are like COVID anxiety scales that we have now, and some research has been done in this area. As you might be aware, almost 40% of people who have suffered from COVID-19 have developed some sort of neurological or psychiatric disorder. And those who haven't suffered from COVID-19 particularly are also, going through a lot of stress and psychiatric issues. Now, the second part of your question is the coping mechanisms. What kind of coping mechanisms we should have? See, stress is part of our life, and we generally have to deal with stress by figuring out the best method that helps us manage stress, does not increase it, and doesn't develop any, secondary problems. Like one of the ways people cope with stress is by, drinking alcohol or smoking or taking drugs. Now, that's not a good coping mechanism because it might help you feel a little relaxed for a short period of time, but then it is also building up another level of anxiety and another disease altogether, an addictive disorder. Similarly, playing games on internet, gaming problem have come up because that is again an addictive coping mechanism that doesn't help. Eating too much, like some people tend to, do stress eating or junk food or, binging on Netflix. All these things have been coping mechanisms, but are not helpful coping mechanisms because they don't let us deal with the stress. They also create a secondary problem. So coping that we require has to be something that can help us identify, one, the source of stress. Secondly, it helps us understand that taking or reacting to the stressor by becoming anxious is going to be hardly helpful because that just, it's a vicious cycle. The more you think about the stressor, the more stress you get. And thirdly, it's about finding that balance wherein you are leading your life, focusing or prioritizing things that are important in your life, and everything else that is not in your control becomes secondary. So what we need to do is one coping mechanism is positive thinking. That you focus on the positive things around you. You instead of focusing on what went wrong in the last 2 years, you would try to focus on what went right in the last few years because there was a lot going right also. We have to be able to practice what we call gratitude, which means that we are able to focus on things that have helped us. So yes, internet causes problems when it comes to getting addicted. But then internet itself has been a real savior during this period, wherein online education and even telemedicine and online consultation, everything has been able to be done. So internet is quite helpful there. So that these are the coping mechanisms. Then talking to people, communicating honestly, being more tolerant, you know, exercising or finding the opportunity to do uh, 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 things that you haven't done in past because you were very busy. All of that is a positive coping mechanism and can help. And that if we have, and we have discussed it in past, if we have it, it definitely works in managing stress better, especially if the stress is as chronic as it has been with COVID-19 pandemic.
Coming to the exercise part that you said, how far is it that exercise can help a person cope from a mental disorder or a mental illness, especially when they're living alone?
Right. So, Vaishali, as we all know, and a lot of research has been done in this area, that when we exercise our bodies, physically exercise ourselves, there is a release of certain chemicals called endorphins, which are natural painkillers and also they make us feel good. Secondly, when our bodies are meant to be active, so there is an energy, there is a physical energy, and if that physical energy stays repressed, then it causes a lot of issues, including mental stress. So that physical energy needs to be channelized. And how do we channelize it positively? By doing something creative, something active. So be it a regular exercise, be it dance, be it yoga, be it a sports activity, all of that is useful in helping us,
Those lifestyle changes.
channelize that, yes, energy. And when we do that, it has a positive effect on ourselves physically, mentally, psychologically, because there is a sense of achieving something, that we have gained something out of it,
Yeah,
we've done
done
something.
something out of it.
Thirdly, the rhythmic motion of the body is also associated with, balancing the neurochemicals. It has been seen in dance movement therapies also, and in psychiatry. We see that how rhythmic action of the body kind of causes a certain rhythmic action of thoughts of brain also. So physical exercise done in that manner, which is rhythmic, is also quite helpful. So we see it in dance movements, Zumba. In fact, all sorts of goal-oriented activities are generally rhythmic in a manner. There is a repetitive action going on over there, even when you're
But
running, even when
when
you're
you
cycling.
mentioning these physical activities like cardio, gym, and everything, a lot of time it so happens that people lack motivation to do so, especially in the times of depression when they're living alone and they have nothing to motivate them, especially when they're not going on job as well. The people are working from home, have been working from home all this lockdown. So how do they get motivated? How do they get the motivation to do so?
That's a very valid point, Vaishali, and that is what we need to understand about psychiatric disorders. See, there is a time when you would realize that you are having symptoms, you're not feeling happy, you're not feeling like doing anything, but you still can do something. And then there comes a time when you have already gone into what we call clinical depression or clinical syndromes, wherein you would not have the motivation. When that time occurs, when despite knowing that you should be doing it, you're not able to do it, is the time when you need to see a professional or you may need to take medication. Before that, when you know that you are, developing issues, you have to take take the next step right there and then. One way to do it is to, set some time for a certain activity. So we say that discipline your routine and put a schedule, a timetable कि इतने बजे से इतने बजे तक ये करना है. I have to do, say, exercise from morning 6:30 to 7 o'clock, half an hour, short steps. Let's start that. And then you tell yourself that, okay, even if I'm not able to do it for 30 minutes, let me just start it. Let me just do it for 5 minutes. So we often tell people that, okay, you get ready, get dressed. If you feel like doing it, do it. Otherwise, don't do it. And let me tell you, 9 out of 10 people who start doing it for 5 minutes would end up doing it for 30 minutes also. Second thing is focus on an activity that you enjoy doing, because don't do something just because somebody else is doing. If you do not enjoy gym, you would not enjoy gym. Okay, so it would be something like you're forced to do. So if you have to do something when you're not motivated, you better focus on something you'll enjoy. So many people who enjoy sports and they were at home and you can't really get out and do sports can still, practice some of the sports related exercises because they have been doing it. So वो घर के अंदर भी की जा सकती हैं और उन्होंने किया है. If you like music, if you like dance, then again another activity where once you switch on that music, you will develop, because music has an impact. In fact, music is something that can change your mood pretty fast, even if it is a low mood. That's the reason why we'll play loud, exciting music when we are in gyms or when we are exercising, because it kind of makes you active. Or if you play bhangra or you play, dhol, it will immediately give a tap to your feet and you would start doing those activities. So do an activity that you enjoy, set a time for that activity, and if possible, do it with somebody else. Because when we are not motivated, sometimes it helps if you are surrounded by people who are doing it. So if you are home and you're not meeting anybody, then your partner, your friend, somebody can do it with you. If you can go to a studio or where group classes are held, then
Yes,
that's again a good thing.
that's again a
Just
helpful
tell
thing.
yourself, let me go and check it out. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
And if you can't do it either ways, then nowadays there are online classes, and like we are doing a Zoom meeting, we get aerobics, Zumba, all of those things. So that can be done too. So I think these three things can help you, develop a routine and you'd be able to pursue physical exercise.
Okay, so ma'am, the other thing that you said is we talk to people. We bring our issues on the table so that people can address and people can tell us solutions regarding that. But many a times it so happens that whenever a person confronts someone with their mental health issues, they say that ये तुम्हारे दिमाग में है. It's all up in your head. Is it really all up in their head? And if not, then how is it that someone can develop mental health issues, and that too very from a very chronic period of time?
Again, something that I've heard about so often, and then I say कि अच्छा, अगर धड़कन बढ़ रही है तो दिल में ही तो है ना, क्योंकि दिल का काम है. So that means we need to treat it. Similarly, अगर मन परेशान है तो दिमाग में ही तो है ना, but doesn't mean that you are not going to treat
Exactly,
it.
and the breakup
Yes.
issues, they just take it lightly, like people have to deal with it, and they said that ये तुम्हारे दिमाग में है, हो जाएगा.
Yeah.
So how do they
So
deal with it?
it's a real issue. It's not what people mean by तुम्हारे दिमाग में, this kind of thing. You are imagining it, but it's not that you are imagining being sad. Who wants to be sad? Who wants to be anxious? Who wants to be upset? Nobody does. So telling somebody that you're doing it to yourself is like telling somebody that you are making your stomach upset. That okay, you might say that you're making it upset because you had a samosa, but then not everybody's stomach gets upset with the samosa, right? So if you have a problem, you need to treat it, even if you did it by eating something wrong. They need to treat it first before you can do a preventive action and make sure that doesn't happen again. So psychiatric illnesses primarily emerge from a biological vulnerability because the brain is part of your body and mind is a function of brain. Your feelings, emotions, perceptions, reactions to threats or stress around us is not something that just happens in a vacuum. It happens because of a certain set of physiological, neurophysiological reactions in response to our genetic makeup and our environment. That is, we are a certain way when we are born, and based upon our environment, we develop a coping strategy. And that is a very biological thing. So if I see a spider and suddenly my heart starts beating, my hands are trembling, I am sweating, what am I going to do? I'm going to avoid the spider, isn't it? It's an unpleasant feeling. I don't want to see that spider because it makes me feel so uncomfortable and scared. This is what we do when we are faced with a threat. Now, somebody else who is not scared by seeing a spider would obviously laugh and say, ye kuch kar dega tumhara, why are you afraid? You should not be. But telling somebody that you should not be afraid of a spider is not going to make him not afraid of spider, because that person knows that I should not be afraid, but is not able to control the physical reaction. So what we need to do over there is to acknowledge the fact that this particular person has a problem which is triggered by a spider. Spider is not the cause, it's a trigger. So we need to treat it. And how do we treat it? Is by understanding what phobias are and how we are treating phobia. So there are medicines, there are cognitive behavioral therapy procedures, systematic desensitization, which are done to deal with it. But it's a process. It won't just happen just by telling somebody it's ठीक हो जाओ. उससे वो ठीक नहीं हो जाएगा.
You
Right?
just, yeah. So you just mentioned that there are therapies for all of it. How do they avoid a trial session, and how do they know that which treatment they are in need of? Them are they in need of counseling? Are they in need of medication? Are they in need of a psychologist or a psychiatrist? How do they approach so that they can save money and get the proper right treatment?
See, like all health problems that we need to deal with, it would require, I mean, we are all professionals. Obviously, when you're professional and you're practicing, you need to earn your living, and you earn your living because your patients have to pay you, right? But it has to be a priority. The problem with most of us is that we don't prioritize our health. It's not like that we don't have money. We think it's all right to spend money on clothes, on shopping, on going out with friends, on buying a cell phone, a new model. But investing on talking to somebody, why would I give money to somebody to just talk to me? Right? So I think there is a bias there, and that is why this kind of a problem occurs. Of course, there is a population which is not able to afford any of the other luxuries as well, and health again becomes a issue for which we have civil hospitals and government hospitals, all of which have psychiatry. All of the medical colleges in the country, all of the government hospitals in the country have a psychiatric setup. We feel that we should not go to a psychiatry setup unless we are crazy. But the truth is, a psychiatrist is supposed to deal with both milder problems of stress as well as major problems of, schizophrenia. So it's not like if you went to a doctor in a government setup, they are just going to give you a pill or medication. They are also going to assess you like any other psychiatrist. So you can seek out psychiatric facilities in your vicinity, which are in the government setup and not in the private setup. Obviously, we hope that at some point of time, medical insurance comes in handy and also takes care of the psychiatric problems. But till the time we have that, this is the option. The third thing is that when you ask to be able to figure out who to go to understand, see, there is always a sort of a hierarchy when it comes to diagnosis and treatment. So there used to be a time when there used to be family physicians and general practitioners who you would go with any problem and they will further guide you. So if you have a general practitioner or a family physician, you can directly go to them and they will guide you whether you should seek a specialist help or psychological intervention or what. Finally, the person who is going to clinically assess you and diagnose is your psychiatrist. So generally the hierarchy is that you go to a GP and GP refers you to a psychiatrist. But because we don't have any such system, you can go to a psychiatrist who would be assessing you clinically and would be able to draw a management plan for you. So for example, what happens if a patient comes to me or if a parent comes with a child? I first have to take complete history, assess the child, understand, and give them options that, okay, currently your anxiety is at a milder level, so probably we can avoid medication and we can start you on therapy. So you are referred to a particular psychologist who can do it, or in some cases, even we do therapies if we have time to do that. As a psychiatrist, I'm saying. Otherwise, a psychologist will be do that. But a clinical assessment would give you a much broader perspective as to what needs to be done. But in our country, many of the things are driven not just by the system; they are driven by our own biases and prejudices. So many a time people are afraid of going to a psychiatrist and they would say कि psychiatrist के पास देंगे तो वो तो दवाई दे ही देंगे तो नहीं जाना है या तब जाना है जब मतलब प्रॉब्लम बहुत सिवियर हो जाए. So that is not how it should be. But if that is the concern, most people try to go to psychologists, and psychologists then assess them and accordingly guide them. So like today only I saw a patient who has been having anxiety disorder and suicidal ideation for almost 6 months. She initially went to a psychologist. So after 5 sessions, the psychologist said that, you should be seeking medical intervention. They came to me today. It was a very, typical case of depression along with obsessive thoughts, so a severe case as that, and the medicines were needed. So after 45 minutes of explaining, finally the patient and the family left, understood the problem, and then the patient comes back and says that I'm not going to take medication. So when you ask why, there is no answer. There is general नहीं मुझे दवाई के बिना ठीक होना है. So when I try to tell her that you have been having these thoughts of committing suicide almost on a daily basis, and you have a 3-year-old child, and you say that I feel sad that my family is upset, and there is nothing in the environment that you have mentioned which is causing stress, which can be changed, modified, or handled, then I have a specific alternative for you, which is medication. Why don't you want to take medication? And frankly, another 15 minutes, I couldn't really find out why there was a bias, but I did have to tell the family that, okay, this is one option I feel which is important as of now, because there is a very significant suicidal ideation. And if you end up impulsively hurting yourself, then there is a problem. So, right. So, like you said, people at times don't know, and then they have biases or prejudices. They're afraid of taking medication. There is a stigma associated with meeting a psychiatrist. So I would say, if you're having a problem, go talk to a professional, a mental health specialist, psychiatrist, psychologist, your college counselor, your school counselor, or your GP, or your pediatrician, or your family physician. But go talk to a professional who has the basic understanding of what psychiatric or psychological issues are and can guide you. And then try to have some faith, because most of these problems are treatable. The unfortunate thing is feeling that you're not going to get treated. Many of these problems are treatable.
Ma'am, mental stress and depression are realities of today's generation and is being put forth more often, especially when it comes to people between the age group of 15 to 35 years. This time period obviously brings a lot of opportunities, but it is indeed a time of change and also, overwhelming, since it happens with everyone. So, what are the possible ways to deal with those changes and those stressing and depressing times? What is your message to people?
Right. See, you're right saying that nowadays we are seeing a lot more problems in the younger population. In fact, most psychiatric illnesses have a incidence or their starting point between 15 to 25 years of age group. And we also know that maximum suicides today are happening in the 15 to 25-year age group, which is sad because it is the most productive age. It is a young age which is developing, integrating, building a personality. So why this is happening is obviously because of the extreme stressful period or the lifestyle issues that we are seeing. What we need to do is go to the basics and correct that first, because we need to prioritize ourselves, right? If we are not okay, how are we going to help, anybody? Or what is the point of, having a great career and lots of money if you're not going to enjoy it? So there are 3 basic things that need to be focused on by everybody if we want to have the ability to manage stress. One is a disciplined routine. A disciplined sleep-wake routine is important. We generally are not prioritizing our sleep. We are thinking that, we can sleep anytime, wake up anytime, burn the midnight oil. It doesn't work. A disciplined sleep-wake routine, which includes sleeping in the night and getting up in the morning, is important because our circadian rhythm, our body clock, it acts according to the sun's rise and sun's fall, sunset. So that is important. Second is proper diet. Diet has a major role to play when it comes to, our physical as well as our mental health, because if we are not having the building blocks of our bodily systems in the right amount and the right nutritional value, and we are putting in toxins on our body, then obviously it is going to have a negative impact on us. Most of the conditions like attention deficit disorders and stomach related issues and lifestyle disorders like diabetes and hypertension are linked to diet. So we need to have fresh wholesome diet, nutritional diet full of nutrition. And the third important thing is regular exercise, because our body is supposed to be moving and we are having a sedentary lifestyle. We are mostly, we got lifts, we got cars, and we got remote controls, and that has gradually led to such a sedentary lifestyle that our hormonal milieu has gone for a toss. So we need to be able to exercise. These are basics. The second thing that comes is stress management. Stress management is stress will be a part of our life. We have to be able to manage it. So being aware that I'm stressed, knowing how stress affects me physically, emotionally, in my mood, in my productivity, and then doing something about it. And what do? You take a pause, you take a break, you prioritize your things, what you need to do first. Give ample time to yourself. Pursue something that excites you or makes you happy. Not because you are going to, get a sort of a medal for it. So I often say, if you want to paint, don't do it for, putting it out on exhibition. Do it because you enjoy painting. So you don't have to do things for a goal, because unfortunately in our society, we are brought up thinking that whatever we do should be able to give visible result in the form of a score on a scorecard, or a medal for us. The first आना है no, do things that you enjoy to do. And finally, in stress management itself, is what is very important is time management. So if we are able to manage our time better, we'll have time for everything. Most of the time when we tell people ki exercise karo, they will say time nahi hai. खाना ठीक से खाओ, टाइम नहीं है. Pursue a hobby, टाइम नहीं है. But time किसके पास नहीं है? We all have those 24 hours in a day, and we are the ones who have to decide what needs to be done. Whether you need to, put yourself first, or you have to put, a movie first. So what is it that you're going to do first? So I think these basic things, if we are able to start early on in our life, then the vulnerability reduces. So our parents are not wrong when they're telling us, keep sahi khao, so jao, jag jao. But of course, none of this works once the system has broken down. Once the system has broken down, once we are not able to feel a sense of well-being, we are struggling with negative thoughts, emotions, obsessions, anxieties, fears, phobias, anger, irritability. We want to sleep, we can't sleep. We want to eat, we can't eat. In that case, we need to reach out to somebody who can help us, bring us system back to normalcy, and then we start with the processes of, once we are healed, we start the process of preventing the onset of these problems all over again. So we can all do it. We need to just know what we want. So prioritize yourself, love yourself, be responsible for yourself, and then everything falls in place.
Really a positive message coming from your side, ma'am. The holistic approach, lifestyle changes, prioritizing things, and the time management are really the steps to a healthy mind. Like, subscribe our page on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and visit our website, medicallyspeaking.in. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us. Thank you so much.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.